Put down your baby and pick up a beer. Dad Jokes is back with a brand new episode. I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you're listening to the podcast of two dads going through the journey of fatherhood while you all get to listen to us as we go through it. What is going on, my friend Brandon? It's been kind of a chaotic couple of weeks for us. I don't know what's been going on with you, but how you doing?
Probably less chaotic, a little bit less sleep, but we'll get into that. Overall, we're doing pretty good.
Good. But before we get into that and kind of what's been going on with both of us, this show's called Dad Jokes for a reason. And I have a couple today, Brandon. One I really like. It's kind of topical. The other one is just so-so. So I think, you know what?
We'll both have two then, because I was debating between a couple.
Well, let's do this. Let me go with one, you go with one, and we'll both have one at the end, okay?
Is this your weaker one or your stronger one?
I'm going to start with my stronger one because it's topical.
Okay.
If that makes sense. Are you ready?
I'm waiting with bated breath.
So, Brandon, why are knock-knock jokes banned on the 4th of July?
I don't even have a good guess on that.
Because freedom rings.
Okay, that's pretty good.
That was pretty good. It was just the 4th
good.
of July. We're going to go over probably a little bit of 4th of July plans or things that we did. So I thought it was clever. So that's mine. What's your first one?
All right, Jerry. So, I used to really be into lifting weights. I've definitely fallen off in the last few years, at least. I don't know why you're making that face, but I definitely was into lifting weights. But my bodybuilder friend, unfortunately, just died. But he left me all of his protein. And where there's a will, there's a way.
Nice. Little whey protein joke there.
Not gonna lie, I read that to Kelsey. I was actually cracking up at both of these, and she thought neither one of them were funny.
I think anyone who lifts will probably get a little bit of a crack at that because you know what's great about, like, and not to get into this, but obviously I've lifted since I was in high school and stuff like that, doing sports. But you always read these guys. Some guys are so adamant about certain types of proteins or supplements, and some people are so anti against the same ones. And it is kind of fun sometimes when you get people talking about that kind of stuff, like, no, whey's the best, or no, you don't need whey, you need soy, whatever it is. So it's just funny.
Yeah, shout out to No Explode. That's not whey protein.
No Explode. Yeah.
Yeah, I call it No Explode.
Yep. No, that was a pre-workout back in the day that I think
it got me hype.
Yeah. Yep. It was good for 5 a.m. workouts, no doubt about that. But Brandon, what's been going on with you guys? You mentioned a little bit about a lack of sleep, or maybe less sleep. I don't know about lack of sleep, but how's KJ doing? How's Bryce doing? We've seen you guys a few times over, it seems, like the last couple weeks.
Yeah, so KJ is doing really solid, but he has definitely hit his 4-month sleep regression. And this is where things are a little bit weird because he's hit that regression, but I feel it not at all in the same way that I did with Bryce. Bryce, we were doing more formula feeding, and so I had basically an entire shift up until about 1:30, 2 o'clock in the morning. So I was feeling the brunt of that before that time frame. At this point, I was really, really feeling it. KJ is basically waking Kelsey up. Like, I hear it. I probably stir a little bit. But he hasn't been the one keeping me up. It's been Bryce. He seems to – he's really gotten into basically knowing that if he cries for long enough or loud enough, then I'm going to come in there. And then I made the mistake, and this is like, I'm calling it a mistake, but we have so in his room, we kept basically the queen mattress in there because we knew when KJ was born, there were going to be times that Bryce was tripping and one of us needed to go in there. So that'll naturally probably becomes Bryce's bed when we take the crib out. But it has been a convenience, but a convenience that Bryce loves. And he has turned into a manipulative 3-year-old at about 3 o'clock in the morning when he's crying. And I go in there, I try to comfort him. He just looks up at me and he holds his arms up, and he'll either say cuddle or get out or daddy. And as strong, sometimes I'm holding strong and I'm trying, but
It's hard.
He looks up at you. You're already tired, and I know I might have the slimmest chance of falling asleep at 3:00. Does Peyton do anything like that?
Not always, but when she has, so she's only done it a couple times in her life, but when she does, it like breaks your heart because I know it's not normal for her at least. So
Yeah.
I usually feel like, and you don't know this, but I usually feel like it's a bad dream. So I feel like, oh no, she had a bad dream, but it's hard. I'm not going to lie, because the thing you mentioned that's so true is, one, you feel terrible and you want to comfort your kid. That's first and foremost. But two, you're also tired, man, and you don't have a lot of will to just do. You want it to end as quickly as possible, and so hey, if I sleep with him or I bring him into the bed, so that's tough. We've only done it twice. One was Christmas Eve, actually, into Christmas morning, and then one was a couple months ago randomly. But it's a dangerous path from what I hear. It's a slippery slope, so it's tough. But you don't want to create those habits, because if he knows he can get away with it, I'm sure these kids are smart enough. They'll figure it out.
It's crazy. It got to the point. It's gotten to the point where he has brought it up to Kelsey or my parents, like days later, like as a memory that he enjoys. Like daddy cuddles in the middle of the night, and it's cute in that moment to think about, but in the middle of the night, it's not. Especially it takes me forever to fall asleep anyway, so I might fall asleep at midnight and be getting right back up, and it is impossible to fall asleep comfortably with that kid in the bed with you. So
that's the worst.
Definitely been going through that. Yeah, Kelsey has her own thing. I'm grateful because this is also like this might end up being like something we break into a topic at some point, but I feel random bouts of like I don't want to say guiltiness, but like I might have like a bad night of sleep, but I know it wasn't as bad as the night of sleep she had, so I'm kind of like...
Right, you're tired, but you're not allowed to be that tired because she's more tired.
I'm not really allowed to talk about that too much. And she got it. It's kind of her right. So KJ's going through that. He rolled over for the first time, which was fun. He rolled over during tummy time, and he's really at the stage where he's very vocal. He's reaching for things, grabbing for toys, things like that. So,
well, Brandon,
Kelsey,
it's funny you said that, because like, think about first kid versus second kid, because you literally were so worried about Bryson rolling over. That was like a big thing for months, I feel like, on this podcast. And now with KJ, we haven't even really talked about it, and you're just like, oh yeah, he rolled over. It was cool. And it's just funny how, like, it puts things in perspective when you get into that second kid, and it just seems like you're less stressed about some of the small things.
Yeah, it's actually, you bring that up. I have still to this day never missed a Bryce doctor's appointment. And you and I had a meeting on Tuesday morning, and really wasn't one that I wanted to miss, and I forgot that we had KJ's doctor's appointment basically at the same time. So he's getting all the, and when I tell you I felt bad about that, but it's just one of those things. Like I know at this point, like if I have, and the crazy thing is, like Kelsey's missed a doctor's appointment before, and I hadn't. Like I took the kid, took Bryce solo, but it was a weird feeling, and then it also is like, am I like taking this kid for granted? Like these little bitty moments, is it? But I knew I didn't really need to be there. Right. And in that moment, this meeting had to take precedence over the doctor's appointment, unfortunately. So that's just kind of one of those things that, I'm sorry, KJ, if you're listening to this like 20 years later. I don't love you any less. But those little things for the second. You told me this would happen, but it's been interesting to see. Yeah,
it's tough. It's definitely tough. It's actually funny you bring that up. One of the things I was going to talk about is, Avery. It's funny because we joke around and say like angry Avery, and she's got a little temper on her. But she's really good in public most of the time, and everyone's always like, including you, are always like, hey, she's such an angel. I don't believe it. She's a great kid. And it's funny because it's like it plays on you both ways. Because one, you start thinking, man, does everyone think we think she's a terrible kid? Because we don't think our kid's a terrible kid. Like, you love her just as much, and she's got a funny personality. She has a ton of fun. She's got all these great things about her, but she happens to be a cranky kid a lot of the times. So it's a little bit like you start feeling bad. Like, man, people think we think this kid's just not a good kid, which isn't the case at all. But then also, you people have this sense about them that she's a certain way, and it's like, she's really not. So it's a little bit too. It's like, hey, this isn't made up. And it's funny because like when Avery's mad, she's just mad. But
do you root against Avery in public? Are you rooting against her to like act out in front of us?
No, I start feeling bad. I root more for her to behave at home. But honestly, lately, so for the last couple months, the real thing is I know what it is now most of the time. And it's just not really a fix for it. Basically what it is if we're at home, about 90% of the time, she wants to be held. And the problem is you cannot always hold your kid. You're doing things, you're making them food, you're getting dishes cleaned, you're doing stuff around the house. It's really hard to always be holding your kid. And Avery wants to be held all the time. And so she'll scream until someone will hold her. She's what Macy calls a Velcro baby, right? So the other problem is she wants to be held, and she's fine if I'm holding her or like strangers are holding her. But if I'm holding her or strangers are holding her and Macy's in sight, that don't cut it either. So if I'm holding her, I literally have to be away from Macy. Otherwise, she still doesn't care. She wants Macy to hold her. And it's a lot. So like if I'm home alone, she's the same way. I got to be the one holding her. But if Macy's home, it's almost like it's even worse because now I have to either like get away from her, which our house isn't that big, or basically Macy's got to be the one to hold her. And so that's the hard part. She wants to be held, but if you can keep her entertained, which is a lot of work a lot of the time, then she's great and she's showing lots of personality. But she definitely, it's just funny you said that though, because like I said, I feel like sometimes it's like, man, I feel bad because like with Peyton it was always positive, exciting things, and I feel like, man, do people think on this like we're not as excited about Avery in certain ways, or are saying that she's like this like terrible kid that cries 24/7? No, she's got a set of lungs on her, and she's not afraid to use them to get what she wants. She's like her sister in that way. She knows how to get what she wants, and screaming seems to be effective because she has a loud enough scream where you don't want to just sit there and wait for 10 minutes while she's screaming her lungs out at you. And she's quick. She's got to be the fastest crawler I've ever seen in my life. She gets on you in 0.2 seconds, so you can't get away from her.
Well, speaking of kids being terrible and crying all the time, that some days that feels like the stage we're at with Bryce. And he's definitely he's hitting his stride and figuring out that what he likes and doesn't like. But the crazy thing is he's so smart, such a like good, sweet kid. Pretty much, I'd say 75% of the time, it's just, you got the saying in like other areas of life. You got like the vocal minority. Like it's like the same with his bad spells are so loud and like tiring.
Which is funny too, because I've never seen Bryce like that. Like you guys joke about like not seeing Avery like that. Dude. I don't think I've ever seen Bryce even like kind of misbehave. Like he's pretty, like every time we're around, he's pretty well behaved, pretty mild. He's the mild mannered one. Maybe there's something with a toy or something like that, but like literally always well behaved. So it's
he makes me proud in public. And even like watching him with his little brother, you can tell he at least he tries for the most part to do what he's supposed to. Some stuff you can't help, but he definitely knows what he wants, and he will make it known. And if he does, we're dealing with. It's interesting. The last we've been dealing with listening as a topic recently, and that was perfect timing on our end, and I'm trying the strategies that we even laid out, but that kid, when he doesn't want to listen, he just will not look up. Like I have to get up, and I could say his name legitimately 100 times in a row, and he hears every single one of them. And he just keeps his head down, do whatever he's doing, until I go over there and make sure he's looking at me. So that's something we got to work on. But on the positive note with him, He's pretty much fully potty trained. We've been out and about multiple times for extended periods of times. He tells us when he has to go. We had to stop at a rest area on Sunday on our way back home, but that went well. He told us while he was in the car. And even last time we talked, the pooping thing was kind of a struggle because he would tell us that he had to go. You could clearly see that he had to go, but he hadn't crossed that threshold of like really knowing how to do it on his own. You kind of had to babysit him. So Kelsey had the brilliant idea to introduce special cookies, which are basically little bitty Oreo thins that he would get if he went poop on the pot. And he would always get excited. That's different than the M&Ms. But when I tell you he kind of broke a barrier in the last week and a half, and it went from like once every 2 days to like 5 times over the span of like 3-4 hour stretches, and he's trying as hard as he can to do it because he wants a special cookie. Now it's almost the opposite. So the special cookies have served their purpose, but they have to we got to ease up on him a little bit because he's a professional pooper now.
Jeez, that's funny. I actually with the potty training, Peyton's doing really well. The problem there is, which I'll get into a story about. There's actually one day she didn't do so well. You were there for that, but other than that, she hasn't had any accidents whatsoever. The problem with Peyton that I don't really know how to break this is she doesn't have any accidents. She doesn't go when she's not supposed to. She does a great job in public, in the car, everywhere, but she's not great at like telling us, "Hey, Dad, I gotta go potty." Usually, it's like, "Hey, it's been 2-3 hours. Peyton, we should go potty." Okay, and then she goes, right? It's like so she goes and she goes right away. And, she sings her potty songs, washes her hands. She's doing great. It's just weird, though, because it's like, how do you make her tell you when she has to go? Because she's not going in her, like, she's not having accidents. And you don't want to just wait for her to have an accident. So you, like I said, it's not like we're doing it every hour either. Like, we're waiting 2-3 hours. And then it'll be like, hey, you haven't gone to the bathroom in a while. You have to go potty? And she usually goes, no. And be like, come on, let's try. And then she goes, potty, and she goes, great. But I don't know. That's the only thing we're kind of dealing with. But again, no accidents. I can't complain. It's just I don't know how vocal she is at telling us when she has to go. But we haven't really had any problems with it either, other than one day, which I'll get into that story in a minute. But that was kind of a weird situation too.
Well, I feel like 2 to 3 hours is strong, and even I think the breakthrough overall for us in his vocalization, even when he couldn't really poop on his own and needed help. It was his last like pee accident, and he was like, he had hit the point where he knew he wasn't supposed to do that, and he was like devastated. I honestly felt bad for him. And some of the accidents we kind of semi-manufactured on our own because we almost in the beginning were too prudent and asked him if he had to go or sitting him on the pot a little bit too quickly, and accidents weren't happening. And some of that is that they're not used to that feeling, so it's a necessary part of the process.
Right.
But I can definitely tell the difference between his last accident and how he reacted. I almost knew in that moment, it was like, this probably isn't gonna happen that frequently anymore based on this. So that's kind of where Bryce is at. A couple other quick hits. We went to Grand Rapids for the first time since we've had KJ. Kelsey's immediate family have all met KJ, but her grandparents hadn't. So he got to meet some her grandparents, her great aunt, her mom's sister, things like that as well. That was a great time. He turns on the charm typically when we're out in public. He's a smiley, happy little baby. Mentioned his doctor's appointment. He's going really well along his curve. He's a little bit taller, but I think like a half a pound lighter than Bryce was, which is interesting if you look at him because KJ, I have to put the side by side on our Facebook and Instagram, but KJ definitely has a little blockier, like chunky head, but he's a little bit lighter than Bryce was at this stage in the game. And then I know you're going to hit on it. One of those times that we saw you guys, we got to hang out at a mutual friend's for the 4th of July. Bryce and I spent much of the day in the pool. He didn't really want to get out too much But it was a lot of fun, kind of getting together and seeing the different kids in our friend group and how everybody's progressing, and they're running around the yard and stuff like that, which is Bryce was having the time.
Oh, he was in the time of his life running. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
He was having the
That
time of
kid's
his
a
life
runner.
running. He loved it. Yeah. So, yeah, we've kind of, it's funny, Brandon, we've been doing this show for a long time now, and usually we kind of give updates of what's been going on, and we talk about everything, and it's funny because every once in a while you have like these moments. I don't know if you have these moments, Brandon, but you have these moments where it's like, man, being a parent can be hard, right? It's a tough job, and I know we talk on here, and
It is.
but we don't know what we're doing half the time, or we're no experts. We're going through it just like all you guys are. And I had one of those moments in the last couple of weeks. It was funny. I got home from work, and it was the day I get home. I get home a little after 5 o'clock, and Macy doesn't get home till 8. So it's like the one day a week where I'm usually home a few hours before she is. And the kids were in the basement. We were all playing. Everyone was being good. And then Peyton's trying to open something, and she said something like, I can't remember exactly what she said, but she said something like, she's like, it won't open. This is stupid. And I was like, whoa. I was like, hey, we don't say that. And she kind of looked at me. I was like, Peyton, we don't say that. That's a bad word. I don't even know where she got that word from. And she goes, no. And I'm like, Peyton, you don't tell Dad no. We don't say that. Tell me you understand. Say yes, you understand. No. And I'm like, Peyton, say yes, you understand. You don't tell no to Dad. And then she says no again. And I'm like, okay, if you say no again, I'm going to put you in timeout, right? So I put her in timeout on like a chair in the basement. And she's actually like, she wasn't crying. She was kind of doing her pouting thing where she's like curls into herself. She was
mad at you.
Oh, she was mad. And I'm like, so I'm playing with Avery. 5 minutes goes by and I go, Peyton, are you ready to, say that you understand Dad? No. And I'm like, okay. So I do this like 3 or 4 times. Finally, I look at her.
Is it weird that I'm like low-key proud of Peyton right now?
Oh, she wouldn't give in. And the bad part, it's funny you're saying this because in my head I'm thinking, I'm like, I remember these moments as a kid, probably not this young, but I remember like, I'm not going to give in to my parents. And I'm like, this kid's doing what I used to do. And so finally I'm like, I'm looking at her and I'm basically like, Peyton, you need to say sorry or you need to tell me, yes, you understand. Otherwise, I'm taking you up and you're going in your crib. And I've never done that. And I don't even know where it came from. I'm just like, I got to do something because she clearly doesn't care what I'm doing. And she's like,
well,
no.
She escalated. You had to escalate.
Correct. So I'm like, no.
That's a crazy feeling, too, as a parent.
Right. So I'm like, I got to do something, right? So I carry her upstairs, and she starts screaming. Like, I haven't heard her scream like this in, like, a long time. And I put her in her crib, and I'm like, one last chance. Say you're sorry. And she's like, no. And I'm like, okay. So I close the door. Meanwhile, my little one, who is obsessed with stairs, somehow got around a barrier and is halfway up the stairs. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to kill the little kid. The older one's screaming at me. I'm like, what is happening? So I scoop Avery up. I'm like, what are you doing? And I go downstairs for like a minute, and then I take her back upstairs because this time I don't want her to crawl, close the baby gate. I go back in the room with Peyton again. Are you ready to say sorry? No. I'm like, all right, last chance. No. Close the door. Go back. This time I stay upstairs playing with Avery. And I'm like, what am I going to do? This kid's being so stubborn. I give it a few minutes. I go back in there. I like look at her eye to eye. I'm like, Peyton, are you ready to listen to Dad? And she's like, yes. I'm like, okay, can you say sorry? And she kind of looks at me and she shakes her head. And I'm like, Peyton, if you want to get out of this crib, you have to say you're sorry. And she kind of looks at me, and I think she's not going to do it. And she's like, sorry. And then I got her out, and she actually was good the rest of the day. And it's funny because, like, all these thoughts are going through my head. Like, one, did I handle that terribly? Am I just, because I'm thinking, like, if I put her in her crib, is she now going to associate crib with bad, which is where she sleeps? Like, is that a bad thing to do? Am I doing what didn't work on me as a kid? I don't know. So I'm having all these thoughts, but the one thing I will say, though, Brandon, is since that time, she still says no. But when she says no, I'll look at her. Usually I'll get like eye to eye with her, and I'll say, Peyton, what did I say about saying no to Dad? And she usually stops. And again, I don't know, but ever since then, and she still has no problem telling me no, but she doesn't keep saying it. She tends to stop when I say that. So we'll see if that sticks or if it actually did any good, but that made me feel a little bit better because it's happened 5 or 6 times since then where I'm like, Peyton, what did I tell you about telling Dad no? And then she'll just kind of stop talking. She doesn't necessarily say yes, but she just stops. So I don't know.
I think the biggest thing that you hit on before you even start getting the stories, before you even start telling the story. Sorry, I muted my mic real quick. But we're not experts. This is an imperfect science, but personally, I think it takes moments like that to kind of establish the line. And the key, because it is so frustrating in that moment, because you got this little bitty human who, like, you're literally keeping alive in like every respect, who's basically being insubordinate.
Oh,
and
yeah.
You don't even want to necessarily, like, you and I both manage people. We don't necessarily manage people from the perspective of do it because I said so.
Right.
But it's similar. Like, sometimes somebody's just doing something that doesn't make sense, and at the end of the day, they need to listen to you. And you looking at this little 2-year-old who's basically telling you what you gonna do about it. And it's
so defiant.
It's a tough like inner. I don't know how to explain what I'm trying to say, but I've been there, and
it's tough.
You know that you can't in that moment give in, but what is the best route? And I think personally, it is establishing a line, sticking to it, but also continue, even if you're saying this the last chance, keep giving them a chance to dig out of their hole, because at the end of the day, they're two. Like,
correct.
So,
and that's the thing. I gave her like 100
honestly,
chances.
I would have handled that the same way. And
I gave her
you would have kept
bunch.
going, even though you're telling her last chance. You would have kept going in there and saying,
for sure,
okay, this is why you're here. As long as you can
Correct.
explain effectively and establish a line, I think that's the right way to handle it.
The good news was actually Avery was being an angel during this. So I don't know if she was happy that her sister was being cranky, but normally I was waiting for Avery to start screaming and being crazy too. But she actually was being pretty good during it. But other things kind of been going on, Brandon. As far as Avery goes, she's so close to walking. It's crazy. She actually, like, I 100% know she could walk if she wanted to. She just is at that point yet where she doesn't trust herself, so she's not willing to just do it. But she, like, can stand. She can walk along things, and if you barely touch her hand, she can walk. She just doesn't have the confidence. So I would imagine very soon she's going to be walking, which is kind of terrifying because that girl loves to get into everything, and she's an insanely fast crawler. So I hope that doesn't translate to a fast walker, because she's in everything. She's also, like, she's showing a lot of personality. She continues to keep growing. She's either having a ball or is super angry, wants to get into everything, wants to, see what things are. She's saying more words. She actually started saying no, so that's fun. But yeah, exactly. I wonder where she got that from. But she's doing good. She's getting a couple more teeth in, and she's having a lot of fun. She also thinks throwing things is hilarious right now, and hitting things, so that's fun too. But everything she has, like her pacifier especially, she thinks it's so funny when she's chucking it. Like, you put it in her mouth and she takes it out and throws it, and she thinks it's the funniest thing ever. So that's fun. Peyton, she's been doing pretty good. One thing that was pretty funny is on my dad's 4th of July party, all the cousins were over, the kids' cousins, and her one cousin, who's probably the closest age to her that was at the party, my cousin Braden, he's a couple years older, he's a boy, but he loves to roughhouse, and he's the youngest in his family, the youngest of 3, so he's used to getting beat up on. Well, Peyton's smaller than him, and I think he thought that was awesome. So they're all on a trampoline, and Braden thinks he's a Power Ranger, and he wants to do, like, these karate moves. Yeah, he literally
Power Rangers still exist.
Oh yeah, he loves Power Rangers, and he's doing these karate kicks and these Power Ranger moves on Peyton, and Peyton doesn't really roughhouse that much, and I'm like I roughhouse with her a little bit, but she doesn't really roughhouse with other kids, and I'm like, uh-oh, but she freaking loved it, and they probably for half an hour, like, doing these kicks and these pulls, and, like, they were kind of beating up on each other, but they were having a blast. And it was kind of really cool to see, because I've never seen Peyton do that before. And Braden was having a blast. I think he thought it was the greatest thing ever that there was a kid that was actually smaller than him that he could roughhouse with, instead of always being his brother's punching bag. So that was really cool. The one bad thing with that is, since that day, I think Peyton now wants to roughhouse more, except for now it's on her little sister, who definitely can't handle it. So that's been fun. She thinks it's fun, and Avery does not. But she's not doing it in a mean way. She's literally just thinks she's having fun. But this kid's so fun. Peyton, I don't know if Bryce does this, but she says the funniest things every day. Today, she's holding a fork, and Macy's like, "Oh, what do you have, Peyton?" And she's like, what's she call it? She says, "I have a doppelhopper or a dinglehopper," like they say in Ariel. And like I don't know where she got that from. Like it wasn't we weren't like we weren't setting that up. Like it literally, she's like, it's a dinglehopper, which is from Ariel. Like, but it's just funny. And then Macy also came to the store today really quick when they were coming back from story time, and it's raining outside, and she's parked under her overhang. So I opened the door really quick because I have to run to another meeting, and it happened to be Avery's side, and I'm talking to Avery, and I'm talking to Peyton over Avery in the other car seat. And I'm like, "Okay, girls, I love you. I got to go." And Peyton goes, "No, you have to come over here, open my door, and see me." I was like, "Okay." But like, she's like
and
bossing me around. And she was right. And so I did. But like, she just like comes up with the craziest things every day now. Like I like every day I'm like, "Where did you learn that from?" Or what are you saying right now? She's just a goofy kid and lots of fun. And then lastly, like we talked about, the potty training thing, and you kind of alluded to it, but we had a party at a friend's house for 4th of July. It was at a pool. The girls went swimming, and Peyton actually did great. She had one of those puddle jumper things on, which I'm not a super big fan of because it doesn't really keep them above water. But I mean, I was right next to her, and she did great in it. She loved swimming. I was surprised at how much she liked it because she's normally not that big into the water, but she was having a blast. The negative thing was, and Macy's going to kill me for saying this, but we actually had the conversation beforehand, and I'm like, "Hey, did we bring swim diapers?" And she's like, "Yeah, I brought them for Avery, but Peyton's fine." And I'm like, "What do you mean she's fine?" She's like, she hasn't had any accidents in forever. She's fine. And I'm like, "No, we're in someone else's pool." I'm like, "I want a swim diaper on her." She's like, "She'll be fine." I'm like, "No." So I went and grabbed some myself. Well, we get there, and she's swimming not 20 minutes, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, she's being weird. Sure enough, she pooped in her diaper. And I won't go into details, but any parent that's changed a swim diaper, not fun, especially if it's not a super solid poo. So that was a whole experience in itself.
I had to have that before.
Oh, it was terrible. And I was trying to do it, and I'm also trying to not get stuff in the pool, and I'm trying to get her clean. She's freaking out. So that was fun, but anyways, luckily she was in a swim diaper. I think that
happened right as we were walking in.
It literally was right as you were walking in, and I was like, I was not in a great mood about it. So I got it taken care of because I didn't really know what to do. I'm at someone else's house, but anyways, I get it taken care of. Luckily, I had more swim diapers. Put another one on her, and probably 30 minutes later, she did the same exact thing. And then Maisie takes care of it. And at this point, I jabbed it in like, "Oh, good thing we didn't want to put her in a swim diaper." I'm being that dad at that point in time. But long story short, she did it 3 times, Brandon. We ran out of swim diapers. She literally did it 3 times. She must have had stomach issues because, one, she always tells us when, like, poop she's never really had accidents with, like, ever. And she didn't even, like it wasn't like solid, and also like she didn't even like seem phased. I don't know if it's because she was in the water or what, but it was, I don't know. It was terrible for us, and I don't know, like I said, if she had stomach issues or what was going on, but that was an experience. But other than that, she really loved being in the water. Avery did pretty good in the water, but it was cool to have them all around, all the friends, and they seemed to have a good time. So that was a lot of fun. Because it's good to see them around, like they were around the cousins, they were around their friends, and it's good to have them around other kids, and so that's fun because even like at church and stuff like that, they get more comfortable other than just the people they see day in and day out.
Yeah, all I got out of that story is thank God for them swim diapers because she was right next to me a whole lot in that pool.
Yeah, no kidding. Gosh dang, man. Dude, it was not. I'm crazy. Like it seems like we've been parents now for a while, like. Going on 3 years, and I feel like it's hard to really phase me anymore. Like I feel pretty prepared when craziness happens because it happens every day. I felt in that moment like, what am I supposed to do? Yeah, it was, and I actually was pretty proud of myself. I found a plastic bag, got her unchanged in the bathroom, threw her in the shower, had her rinsing off while I was wrapping up this nastiness in a plastic bag. Got her in a new swim diaper, got her back out, and the world was fine. But definitely caught me off guard. So thank God for swim diapers is the moral story. That should be my baby gear for the week. But speaking of baby gear, Brandon, what's your baby gear this week?
So I got a few things that are topical, what we'll go over. But Kelsey knew, I had a conversation with her actually a couple weeks ago that we take time out a couple times a week, like at nighttime, to go over some like learning stuff, and we'll get into strategies a little later. A lot of the things he watches basically do the same thing and reiterate some of the stuff, but I wanted to start being a little bit more intentional about some of like not just the nighttime stuff. I don't get the opportunity with him during the day unless it's the weekend. So when I get home from work, what can we do? So she ordered a few different things for me. Two are from Scholastic. One's a get ready for pre-K like learning file, which has some like basically different like flashcards, things like that, counting, like an activity pack for STEM. It's pretty cool. He likes especially the flashcards. We were going through those today. And then also they have a toddler workbook that goes over like color, shape, alphabet, like basic concepts, things like that. So both of those have been helpful. And then the last thing is a Montessori method. I think she got this for me because she knew I was probably still a little salty about him not going to the Montessori. So he has a busy book that teaches about the Montessori. And I'm not actually salty about the Montessori. I think we made the right decision. Let me clean that up.
There you go. We must have been on the same wavelength because I'm pretty much, mine's very similar. I put this week, and I might have even gone over these before, but my baby gear were toddler workbooks, basically. And we have quite a few of them. I know my mother-in-law does a great job with Peyton, and Peyton actually loves them. Tonight she was trying to get me to do one with her, and it was already done. So I'm like, there's nothing left to do. But basically, they're different workbooks where they can either do different activities, whether it's drawing, whether it's stickers that they have to place in certain places, whether it's coloring, shapes, different stuff like that. There's tons of different ones. If you type in toddler workbooks in Amazon and you can put the ages, they'll give you tons of them. Like right now, I have toddler workbooks age 2 to 3 in Amazon, and there's tons of them, anywhere from like $6 to $20, depending on what you want. We have like a Play Smart one, I know, that's an early learning one that she really likes. And then some of the sticker ones she really liked early on because it was like fun for her plus learning. So can't recommend them enough. Gets them interested in things and they're learning while they're doing it. So that's pretty cool as well. But yeah, that's a good place to get into today's topic, Brandon, which we're going to talk about a little bit, like strategies or different things you can do to help your kid learn some skills, I guess I'll call them, or different things that they can learn either before preschool to prepare them for preschool, or maybe because your kid's going to preschool later or not preschool at all, or maybe they're in preschool and you want them to help, refine some of those skills. Just different things that you can do at home with those same kind of things. So, we're talking shapes and colors and numbers and, directions, things like that you kind of want a toddler from, I'll call it age 2 to 4, 4.5 to kind of know or learn. Kind of to start off, Brandon, I guess what I'll say is something that we did early on, and I think you even talked about this in a really early podcast, but one thing that's worked really well is if you're trying to teach your kid something, put it in a song, and it somehow works amazing. And a lot of them already have songs out there if you don't want to think of a song or make up something. But think about the alphabet. When you do the ABCs, I don't know about you, Brandon, but in my head, I'm literally doing the song if I'm trying to figure out where a letter's at to this day.
Without fail, every time.
Yeah, so, it's the same thing with kids. So if you can put it in a song, whether it's numbers or shapes or like cleanup, like the cleanup song, I do that constantly. Put things in a song, brushing your teeth, so if your kid's struggling maybe with something that you're trying to teach them, make up a song. I bet you it will help you because very rarely have I done that and it's not worked. And I think you mentioned that, Brandon. I'm pretty positive you do that all the time.
Yeah, without fail. There's a song for literally that's kind of, as a guy in college and high school, to remember tests, I would like make stuff in the song and stuff like that. That's just how I've always learned. Like my mom did that with us, and we've done that with Bryce as well. And I'll get on my end into some of the actual practical skills for that'll help them in preschool from a learning perspective. But the other thing to pay attention to as a parent, how do you know when they're ready? And B, the biggest thing, like even before they go to preschool, is a lot of kids have separation anxiety. So what works best for your kids to kind of prepare them mentally as well. So a couple different signs that your kid may be ready. How social interaction, like do they play well with other kids? Can they share? And I'll have a little bit more on that later. How are they at following instructions? If this was the only thing, then Bryce would not be going to preschool based on how I felt about him today. Some preschools require potty training, that to each their own there. You can figure that one out yourselves. And then emotional readiness and separation anxiety. So how comfortable are they being away from you for a few hours and sometimes so being away from you for a few hours may be like something that you only know that with like a family member or something they're comfortable with. This is a big hurdle. And so for us, we have already started watching things that talk about going to school, talking to Bryce about the fact that he's going to school, what to expect, getting him, like as we pass schools and when we're in the car, I talk to him about it. Because it's something I want him to be excited about. I want him to only hear positive things. And that's not something I want to start talking about like the day before, the week before. I want that to be like on his mind. And with him, we found Kelsey does a really good job. If something is changing in the schedule for whatever reason that we know going for, like yesterday, she picked up KJ and not Bryce for his doctor's appointment. She talked him through it the day before, the morning of, so he knew mommy's coming to grab KJ. You're staying with Granny and Pawpaw. Mommy's going to bring KJ back, and mommy's going to leave. Same concept. Like talk your kids through it. This is a lot of times parents look at it from their perspective, like I can't believe I'm letting my baby go with these strangers, but it's a huge hurdle for them too. Mm-hmm. So, in addition to the skills that we're going to talk about, you want to talk about preschool in a positive way. If you can, schedule a visit with the school beforehand to let them walk around and see what's going on. Create a goodbye ritual, and then be consistent and nurturing and reassuring from an emotional side.
Yeah, and kind of to hit on that a little bit before going to more strategies, Brandon, something I came across that was basically like, is your kid ready for preschool? And these are kind of some of the things that popped up. Can they follow directions like you mentioned, but also can they sit and listen to a short story? Are they able to eat a meal and use utensils? Can they drink from an open-lidded cup? Can they understand turn taking? Can they do pretend play by themselves? Are they able to focus on a task of interest for 6 to 8 minutes? Can they dress themselves? Are they potty trained? And can they handle transitions? So those are kind of some of the things that I read, similar to a lot of the stuff you mentioned. But those are some skills you might want to look at or work on independently. Maybe if you're, and it doesn't like
before we jump off of there, mm-hmm. just like on a personal side, I've been struggling more than I thought over the last few weeks with the thought of Bryce, because there are definitely times throughout the day I'm looking at him like he is a baby still. Like it is hard to imagine basically handing this kid off to a stranger, and trusting them to get that done. But then he also amazes me at times. Like we were doing flashcards today. He knows all the letters, all the sounds, colors, and sat there. And so it's just on a personal side, I am struggling with the thought of it, but we're still preparing ourselves like what we're talking about. But your kids will surprise you, and kids are resilient too. So
and that's kind of like where you talked about a little bit about this, but like what can you do for them, but also for you to help prepare for this is get them around other kids or those situations. So what can you do? Like know your family dynamic. First of all, do you have cousins you can get them around? Can you take them to a children's center, a children's museum, or to the aquarium, to the zoo? Can you get them out, into places where they're learning, but also around other kids? Like I said, there's people in the neighborhood that maybe or your friends have kids similar age, those types of things. And then one thing that we've done recently that I think has helped us, because it is hard, but it's on a smaller scale, is when we are at church, which church usually lasts about an hour and a half. We've been giving Peyton and Avery to the nursery there. and they're 100 feet away, and if something happens, we're going to get a text message and we're going to be there in 2 seconds, right? But it's allowed us to kind of get comfortable with handing your kids off to people you don't know that well, being away from them getting used to going to someone that's not their grandma or their grandpa or someone they know. And honestly, it's been tough. Like Peyton was crying the last time when we left, and that hurt. That was tough. And I was anticipating going back in 2 minutes and grabbing her, but we didn't get text. She ended up being fine, and it's helping us too. Like I was not super comfortable the first time and the second time, but I think the more and more it's happened, and as we get it, it's becoming more comfortable for me. So it's helping me probably as much as it's helping her, and Macy probably too.
Yeah, it's huge. And the more I go over this intentionally with Bryce, I'm sure I'll start feeling more and more. But that I am not looking. I'm looking forward to it and not looking forward to it at the same time. So we'll see.
Yep. So yeah, Brandon, like other things you can do to help your kids with certain things is obviously activities around the house. What are you doing? So have purposeful toys, have learning toys. But it's not just, I think one thing that I read that's kind of important, it's not just in your house. Get them outside the house. Get them in nature. Get them in playing in their playhouse if there's a playhouse, or in the grass, or doing t-ball, or different skills like outside of the house will help too, because it's not their total comfort zone. So not only are you working on maybe skills outside the house, but you're also working on getting them comfortable doing things in different areas, or areas that they're not used to doing that. So that's something that I know we've done, but it makes sense too. Like I think we were just doing it because it's like, hey, it's nice to be outside. But now it's like, hey, you know what? That's right. Now I know Peyton loves being outside. She loves being in certain areas outside because we do it so often. But if you don't always go outside, or always go, into different areas of the house, then it becomes less and less familiar to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And the next step for me is, how do you build some of the essential skills? So one thing that's super important, especially once you start getting around other people's kids, is helping your child understand personal space. None of us want to be the parent who gets a text or call that your kid put their hands on somebody else's kid in one way or another, and that was not wanted. So making sure that they understand space and boundaries. I do think that having, as Jerry mentioned, other cousins or friends that they can play with, so you can kind of let them do their thing, but also monitor it, is super helpful. And also, having another kid in the household has been, I think, helpful in that regard for us, because it's helped establish some boundaries. Bryce knows basically what he can and can't do with KJ and what we expect out of that. And another part of that is sharing and taking turns. So play games with your kid that encourage cooperation, and practice taking turns. It's mommy's turn for this. It's Bryce's turn for that. It's daddy's turn for this. It's Bryce's turn for that. Because that's the real life and real world that they're about to walk into.
Yep.
And it also, you're setting them up. Truthfully, this isn't a stage where they can potentially, not sounding too cheesy, but establish some lifelong friendships. And I mean, if I would have met Jerry when we were like 3 and 4 years old, I'm sure I wouldn't have been his friend, because he seems like the type that would have been a little stingy and wouldn't want to share.
I had anger issues as a kid. I was like an anger management at like a 5-year-old, so he probably wouldn't have wanted to be my friend.
So make sure they know how to share, take turns. I hit on it earlier, following directions. So sometimes we have the expectation of our kids, and you kind of grounded me a little bit earlier when you brought up how Bryce is in public. You probably will see that a little bit more in the school setting until they get really comfortable.
They get comfortable. That's the thing. That's what I think about too, yeah. Because it's like, okay, I feel good about how she's going to be, but then, okay, what happens when she's comfortable with the kid, and now she's fine taking the toy away because it's no longer stranger. So that's,
Well, when we toured that Montessori, the who would have been the teacher basically said, "I'm not worried at all about the first 2 weeks. He's going to be on his best behavior. Like, you're not going to hear anything from us. It's not going to be a problem. The beginning of week 3 is when their
makes sense.
Personality really comes out."
That makes sense.
She's like, to a T. That's when we start seeing who they really are. Some of the things you might tell us or how they are at home, we really start seeing that. So keep that in mind as well.
Yeah.
But then,
one thing, Brandon, that I saw, I don't know if you've seen this, but I saw it so often when researching for this podcast that it kind of surprised me, but it says to encourage pretend play. I saw that like 15 times.
Yeah.
And it's funny because like I guess Peyton naturally has always done pretend play. I don't know that we've encouraged or we've not discouraged it, but she's always just done it. Like that kid she plays pretend 24/7 like with stuff. But I guess it's really good for them. That's a good skill to have when going into preschool. So if maybe your kid doesn't do that, then I guess they said like, encourage it, have them have, tea parties or make believe or whatever, with their stuffed animals or with dolls or whatever it is, play a night. It doesn't matter, but pretend play, I guess, can be a good skill. And I saw it a couple times and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And then it kept popping up. So it must be important one way or another, Brandon.
Oh, for sure. That was actually my next note. But in a similar topic, as far as what you're encouraging, is encourage them and show them how to express themselves. So Bryce has, I don't know how many different books on feelings. And I think I told you guys last podcast, he started to tell us when he's mad,
yeah,
he's
right.
mad when we do it. But that, as funny as that is, that's important, because if you're feeling a certain type of way about something, it might be something that the teacher said, it might be something that a classmate said.
Mm-hmm.
You need to be able to effectively tell them that what they're doing is making you feel a certain way. And also, from a parent perspective, I want him to be able to come home and tell me, this is what happened today. Billy made me mad because he did this.
Right.
Billy, I made such and such sad because I did this. Because we can be better parents to them in that moment and try to help them understand what's going on.
Yeah. And a key to a lot of what we're talking about too, Brandon, is know your kid. And you know them better than anyone. So where do they excel? Where do they struggle? And how can you help them with that? Like Peyton, she's so smart, but her attention, and this was me as a kid, so it's hard for me to get upset with it, but she does not have, like, I know kids don't have a great attention span, but hers is terrible. It has always been. When she's interested in something, she'll give you a little, but like, she is very hard to focus in on something. And so it's trying to, like, a lot of times I'll try to teach her stuff without her realizing I'm trying to do that. And like, I would just, like, I used to say the ABCs because she would never pay attention to me when I was trying to teach her ABCs. So I would just say it when she wasn't paying attention to me playing some game. And eventually one day I heard her singing it. And again, she would never give me attention when I did it, but she was listening. So it's knowing your kid, knowing where they're weak, where they're strong. And another thing I'll mention too, and this is something that I sometimes feel like we do a great job, and other times I feel like we do a terrible job. And it's, trying to limit screen time some too, especially if they're going away. They're not gonna be watching TV and stuff while they're at school. So having them be okay playing and playing with these certain types of games and wanting to learn and not just wanting to play on a screen. That's key. And I notice a difference too when Peyton has zero TV in a day versus where she like all of a sudden wants to watch a bunch of TV. She's a different kid. So limiting screen time is something that, and I'm saying this, and I could be a lot better too, but something you probably want to work on if it's a big part of your kid's life.
Yeah, you want to set them up for success. And we've kind of glossed over it a little bit, but the learning aspect of it, and this is not just for preschool, it is going forward, but school shouldn't be the only place, in my opinion, that your child is learning like the actual curriculum.
Right.
You need to be able to supplement at home. You need to be able to help them with their homework. So for right now, for us, it's, I know he's getting certain things from my parents while he's there, but also taking it, and it's fun for him right now. So take the couple minutes, and I mean, it could be as simple, like today, Bryce and I wanted to go over basically 5 flashcards with them. One side had different objects, colors, the other side had letters and numbers. And then uppercase, lowercase, we talk about how each letter sound. My goal typically would be to go over 5 to 6 letters. Today, I went to stop. He asked for more, and he kept going. We got basically through like 20 cards before I could start to see like him ready to do something else.
Yeah, zoning out.
But even if you're committing to call it 10 minutes a day, We all got 10 minutes, whether we want to admit it or not. Take that. That could actually be like, it's right now, it's super fun for me to see those wheels turning, see the work show up. So I show him a letter and he's hitting me with the sound. And then we make, like, that's when he gets to call his mom Kelsey. K, this for Kelsey. And he yells Kelsey across the house. Little stuff like that makes it super fun.
And keep trying if it doesn't work the first time, because it might not. It might take a few times. It might take a little tweaking of how you're doing it.
First 12 times.
Correct. You can't get discouraged. You got to keep just doing it. And like I said, it's like food. If you get mad because they don't eat it the first time, you got to keep trying. We've tried for months to get Peyton to eat a vitamin. She decided she didn't like them a few months ago. We've tried everything in the world. She wouldn't do it. Macy told me today she got her to eat a vitamin. So, again, sometimes you guys just keep trying. I don't even know how she did it. I didn't even ask. I was just like, good. I'll take that W. Like, I got to find out how she did it actually for real. But, like, that's a W. So, yeah, I don't know. Any other final points, Brandon? Because I think I'm pretty good on my end. I don't know if you had any final points before we kind of wrap it up.
I got a couple other things. So you want to make sure that you're setting them up for success when they actually get there. So choose the right gear for them. If you can, let them choose their own backpack. They'll get excited about it. Let them try it on. Let them put it on before they are going to school. If your kid is eating lunch at school, let them pick their lunchbox out. Show them how to open it, how to eat out of it. You want to get with the school to understand it. Are they allowed to bring a comfort item, something that reminds them of home? Some schools allow it, some schools don't. And then, for the love of God, label everything.
Labels.
These kids, for the teachers themselves, at least let them know what's going on. And my last thing, we as dads, we have high expectations for our kids. You got to remember, preschool is a learning experience. It's okay if they don't come home reciting the alphabet or knowing every number, or they might be a little behind in one area. If you establish the right things at home, my belief is that will eventually come, but we all have to be patient. It's just like sometimes I wanted Bryce to start crawling and rolling over, and he went from like rolling over to walking and was barely crawling for that. Just everybody grows a little bit differently. So focus on the kid, focus on yourselves, and be patient.
Yeah, great advice. Don't compare to your expectations, but also don't compare to the guy down the street or the other kid in the class. I mean, chances are if there's 20, 30 kids in a class, they might not be the most advanced. They might not be the least, and it's okay. Like you said, especially if you're doing the right thing. So great place to end there, Brandon. And I believe we each have one more dad joke. So are you ready for my second dad joke?
I'm still waiting with bated breath.
Brandon, how does a computer get drunk?
It drinks from a hard cider drive.
No, it takes screenshots.
I think I saw that somewhere. I should have guessed that.
That one's pretty good.
Right,
that one's pretty good.
More.
Okay.
This is the one Kelsey rolled her eyes at the most.
Okay.
But I love it. What is a chicken's favorite musician?
Bach.
Did you do that already?
I just knew it.
You're right. It's Bach. Yep, it's Bach.
Bach. I hit that quick too. Like as soon as you said,
I really
I don't
just
know.
wanted to do that.
You know when someone says something and like triggers something in your brain, like I don't even know where it came from, but it was just like that's the answer.
You're not even a musician. How do you know Bach?
I must have either heard that joke or I don't even know. It triggered something because it came right to me. But I'll take it. I like it. But yeah, that's a good place to stop.
Good job. Sure.
Basically, this is the shameless plug portion of the podcast. If you haven't liked us already on our social media, please like us on social media. Please tell your friends about us. Please write a review. We actually had a couple new reviews come in recently. We've had some people reach out recently. Appreciate every single one of you. We like hearing from you. We like topic ideas. We like hearing your story, telling us what you want to see or hear. All of that kind of stuff we really, truly appreciate. And honestly, the biggest compliment you can give us is tell your friends or put us on a Reddit thread or a group. If you mention our name, that's the best thing you can do for us, and we really, really, really do appreciate it. But until next time, as always, I'm Jerry, joined here by Brandon, and you've been listening to Dad Jokes.